Hello and welcome to our exciting panel today, Transition to Opera Cloud in Record Time. I am Connie Reams, Group Vice President, Global Accounts here at Oracle. In this panel, we are going to hear from two industry senior leaders who are making the journey to cloud a reality in their companies. They're going to share their experiences, best practices, and some lessons learned along the way. So let's jump right in. I'd like to first introduce our panelists. Christine Keller is the Senior Director of Global Deployment Operations for Wyndham Hotels and Resorts. Christine has more than 20 years of experience in technology and property level system deployments. She manages the daily operations around numerous property level technology implementations, including property management systems, guest Wi-Fi, and in-room technology to Wyndham's 20 brands across the globe. Christine is a past recipient of the prestigious Wyndham Worldwide Chairman's Count on Me Award. Bertrand Bacha leads the hotel technology department globally for Accor. He started his career on property and operations, and then as an installer for Micros Fidelio, and joining Accor in June of 2007. In his current role at Accor, he provides technical, guest-facing technologies such as PMS, point of sale, Accor Key, guest communications, Wi-Fi, and additional services and products for on-property. Thank you, Christine and Bertrand, for joining me today. I have the pleasure of working closely with you both, so this should be fun. Let's get started. You both started with a single pilot property over a year ago, and now you're rolling out en masse. Wyndham, you have your pod concept. Accor, you have your wave concept. How does this support your strategy?
Well, this past May, our CIO, Scott Strickland, announced our intent to roll out new property management system technologies, highlighting Opera Cloud as one of the key solutions that our properties can implement. Prior to this announcement, we had already started a deliberate property by property approach to test, learn, and evaluate Opera Cloud, from the product performance to how we do the process for installation. And from there, we devised a plan in partnership with Oracle to transform how we traditionally implemented Opera by collaborating on a rollout plan that allows us to achieve the install volumes we hope to get to this year and beyond, while keeping the franchisee experience top of mind, which is critically important for us in all that we do. The pod concept, where 10, 15, or more properties can participate in training and application cutover sessions simultaneously, has really helped us to achieve both of these ideals. And when we use tools such as Zoom, we've been able to increase the number of monthly installs we complete, but also maintain that direct and face-to-face engagement with our properties throughout the rollout. And this really truly supports our strategy to implement Opera Cloud swiftly to our properties so that they can realize immediate benefits of leveraging this secure cloud hosting platform and all of its convenient mobile capabilities. And mobility being top of mind for all in the industry at this time, it's really helped us to achieve those goals.
That's great to hear, Christine. I know, and if you could just give the audience an idea of how many properties every month you're converting and how many you hope to be able to get to en masse.
Absolutely. Right now, we're averaging about 10 properties per month, but we're expecting through this year and beyond to increase that to where we're doing 10 properties or more per week. And that has been part of the strategy as we test and learn and revise the strategy and the planning and the process. That has been leading us to that point where we can increase the volume to that level. So it will be significant volume in the coming months, but we feel very prepared based on the experiences we've had thus far and the collaboration of teams between Oracle and Wyndham that we'll be able to achieve that and move our properties very swiftly to the cloud.
Great, thank you. And Bertrand, I know about your Accor Wave strategy. It would be great to share that with the audience, as well as, again, how does this support your strategy for cloud?
Yes, that was very important point for us. And we bring that point to the table at the very beginning of the project with the Oracle consulting team. So we really worked hard with them to find a common rollout strategy to go live with multiple hotels at the same time. On Accor side, there was two main reasons to that. First, countries where we wanted to get rid of the on-premise installation because of the difficulty to stay compliant with the new fiscal regulation, like in Germany, for example. And the other point was to convert our new acquisition to Accor PMS standard very quickly. Being able to go live with 5 to 10 properties in the same week really helps to leverage the implementation costs for owners, as well as for us being faster than we were in the past to provide a full configured PMS.
Thank you, Bertrand. Yeah, it sounds like a lot of items driving that strategy. So good to hear. I'm going to move to Christine and want to talk to you about, as the leader executing the move of your properties to Opera Cloud, which teams have you involved in the planning, and were there special considerations that you had to accommodate, like partners, programs, or integrations?
There are several considerations to account for during this phase, as you know. And for us, it spans our internal organization and our external partners. So within the organization, we have several key teams involved in planning and execution, from my colleagues in the product team, who represent development and application requirements for our essential tools for our programs such as Wyndham Rewards and our global sales organization, to technology support teams. They manage everything from rate builds to application support. And we're especially proud of our partnership with our training team, who helped to develop additional materials for Opera Cloud from a training perspective, and our field operations folks, who, as one of the primary touch points with our franchisees, they help to explain and make sense of our strategies in a way that resonates for our franchisees and allows us to better sell the story of Opera Cloud. And so as we've done that, we've also have a key strategic partner such as Elevon. They provide our EMV terminal and gateway service technologies for our properties. We had to ensure there was proper integration with Elevon and Opera Cloud, as Elevon delivers a vitally important role in the EMV compliance, as well as our deployment of contactless payments.
Thank you, Christine. Bertrand, I want to propose a different question for you. You have decided to leave historical data behind, and we know hoteliers love their data, right? So tell us a little bit about that, that strategy. What has been the response from the hotels? What tactics have you found useful in those discussions?
Well, that's always a hard decision to take, especially, as you said, operations always prefer to have access to their old data. We did refer to what we did in the past, where even moving data from two systems of the same vendors was not that easy, and with a huge cost impact to present them this net new model. The advantage of migrating on-premise is that you can back up the current Opera server and keep a copy of the data for legal purpose and let the hotel read-only access until the Opera server is decommissioned. Today, even if having the two options on the table for the hotels, because we have not completely removed the fact that someone will want to move the data across, we have not seen so many requests so far.
So you're not seeing that hotels are going back and looking at that data?
No.
Yeah, I think that's what a lot of us suspected, but interesting to get a confirmation from you around that. Christine, any differences from Wyndham? And again, how did you decide to make that decision?
Not a lot of differences, as Bertrand mentions. It is a subject that seems to be, of course, very near and dear to the property. Data is important, we know that, and the reactions around historical data, they do vary and from property to property. What we've found is that we have a conversation around what their expectation is from a data migration and what typically happens versus what really the reality will be for them. And once we understand what their expectations are, we offer suggestions on how we want to achieve those needs. So we like to use data entry as a training tool for the property staff as they're learning cloud and incorporating this activity into the overall schedule. We never let the data migration concern be a reason for a property to opt out of a transition. As Bertrand notes, and we find that many times post-install, it was the ideal of having that data was more than the actual need of having that data. We've also seen that time and time again. So we try to ensure that with the proper information share in advance, preparing the information together before install, strategizing how we get through the data migration concern and or ensure that we're accounting for the data they need. We just emphasize there's always options available to alleviate that concern and have their confidence in that transition plan so that the topic of data migration and the expense around it doesn't derail the process.
Very good. Okay. Sounds like a thorough approach by both of you. I'm going to pivot here to Bertrand, and I've got a question around integrations. So how did you approach all the integrations that are required for your business? And in addition to that, you know, with Opera Cloud, you get access to our new integration platform, OHIP. And do you have any plans to leverage this to innovate for the future?
My favorite topics. So
excellent.
We have so many countries and specificity that before any hotel has moved to Opera Cloud, we would first verify with Oracle that all interfaces are validated working with this new version. For OHIP is one of the reasons we moved to Opera Cloud because we think it will offer so many possibilities internally or with partners that was not possible as of today. Firstly, it was a good decision to release OHIP as an open source. It will offer more partners and various new solutions available much faster than all the effort that were needed before to get a new interface certified. Secondly, because it will allow us to develop internal solutions with much more capabilities or options than before, we at Accor have decided to be part of the early adopter program for OHIP. The OHIP team, and thanks to Luis, was very helpful, and we were able to internally showcase a proof of concept involving reservation, check-in, check-out, and invoice in less than a month. We are already working on replacing some homemade Opera processes using reports or schedule report with OHIP calls, which will allow us to get live data to simplify and ease our colleagues' daily operations. Lastly, as data has never been so important, I'm sure we will find new use cases for the future around that topic.
Thank you. I had the pleasure of seeing your test after a month, which was incredible. For a month's worth of work, I got a checkout from one of your properties, texted to me with those details of my invoice and how many points I had accrued for that stay, which I thought was really, really great to see that, you know, real time, very quick. So thanks for sharing those stories with us, Bertrand. Let's talk about labor. Labor is a big issue that I am hearing from across all the customers. And it's an issue that nobody sees that's going away. So I want to talk to you about and hear your thoughts around how Opera Cloud is simplifying the training for your staff and now how easy that transition has been. I know, Christine, you spoke earlier about that you've developed some custom training and redid all of your training around Opera Cloud. I'd love for you to talk a little bit more and expand on how you're seeing the training time to get a new employee up and running in Opera versus in a prior PMS technology?
That's a great question. And I think by the fact that we no longer have to be on property for 10 or more days to install and train Opera for our franchisees is a significant accomplishment. Being able to offer remote training at quicker intervals and more flexible schedules for our properties is essential. and being able to leverage, having the property leverage e-learning in advance of the formal training event has also been significant in that they're learning basic system knowledge before we're doing and getting into the proverbial nuts and bolts of the application. So with our time to install, now less than 10 days for most of our implementations, with our ability to offer the flexibility in dates and times and schedules, at the present time, given the industry labor shortages, this has been very important. We no longer have to commit to 2 weeks of learning over a specific schedule. And while scheduling and specifics around the content are extremely important, and we would never get away from that, having the ability to do combination of e-learning, Zoom sessions, and other ways to engage with our franchisees has really transformed our ability to get to market with them, but also makes them feel a little bit less pressured as they ensue with this new system and what they need to do to get to that end state. So for us, all the way around, it's really been a game changer.
Christine, are you seeing that the employee feels comfortable after that combination of e-learning, Zoom training? Like, is there a difference in the level of confidence of the employee today versus in the past with the traditional training classroom style?
Based on what we're seeing, the great thing is having a system of the e-learning system to truly go back to and leverage for additional or refresher learning. And that confidence, having that they can go back to if they needed a reference for something that we had just trained, because we all know when you're learning something new and you're in the middle of doing your job, it's a lot to take in a short period of time. But having the ability to go back and listen to a recording or go back and access specific content is very helpful. And yes, I think what we're seeing is that while they're learning through these various mechanisms, they're also able to rely on more of those mechanisms before having to pick up the phone and potentially call support or ask for additional help. So yes, I think we're seeing that.
That's great. I know I've heard your CIO say that he gave it to his daughter and he said, I think she was able to do a mock check-in in like an hour or something like that. So yeah, it was kind of a funny story. All right, Bertrand, how about you? How about for Accor? What are you seeing in this area regarding, labor and the ability to train up people faster with Opera Cloud?
Well, I'm 100% with what Christine said, and e-learning is also a big effort that Oracle did with Opera Cloud. That's for sure recognized by all our properties. And of course, being able to provide e-learning does not simplify or reduce the installation cost. In the context we are all living since 18 months, it also allows you to configure, train, and open a hotel 100% remotely. For sure, we will always have requests for on-site training when it is possible, but at least we have been able to validate that we have now more than one options. Maybe two things I can add on e-learning. Do not minimize the hours you allocate to the Q&A sessions. This is something we have seen at the beginning, and that was not really correct on the sizing we put behind it. So we had to review that. But for sure, the Q&A will really be the key if you only do e-learning. And don't believe that current user, the one that are used to Opera V5, will be the simplest to train. In most of the cases, it will be even much more complex for them, not only because the product is different, but also because running on-premise solutions since years might give them a completely different perception of the new system. In our cases, the adoption was clearly different from new opening than from converted properties.
Interesting. So I heard two things from you. Don't short the Q&A time, and that it's easier to actually, train a net new employee than a V5 user. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks for sharing that with us. I'm going to come back to Christine. And I want to just ask, from a perspective of how long does it take to implement Opera Cloud versus the time it would take to implement on-premise? And if you're seeing a difference for a reflag or a net new property in that equation.
Well, we save significant time in implementing Opera Cloud across the board. I think it's sometimes really difficult to relay just how transformational cloud-based products are when it comes to implementing these on-property solutions. In the past, when we deployed on-premise technologies, there were numerous variables, potential failure points. No matter what we planned for, even with those best laid plans, you would still have hardware delivery delays, occasions where incorrect operating systems were loaded. We'd have imaging challenges occasionally, or for those that work in this, the most dreaded, server failures after everything is unboxed and connected and ready to go. When you have those issues, not only do they absorb significant time in the schedule and requires a lot of reworking of that schedule, the properties get frustrated. It is a terrible experience for them out of the gate. It's very hard to recover from that because there are operational impacts to their operations as they're lengthening now their training time as we recover the hardware. It leaves us less time to dedicate to essential training and cutover work. And what I like about cloud is these are not worries we have to pay attention to. It allows us to spend our time focusing on product training, supporting our properties through these transitions without these unpredictable distractions. And for us too, the easier user interface of Opera Cloud, which lends itself to the remote training experience, being able to quickly turn around installation dates. And as Bertrand was just speaking of net new properties, that's absolutely critical for us. We turn around a lot of conversion properties on a monthly basis, and typically every one of those will need a fully functional property management system at the time they're opening as one of our branded locations. So coming to market in this way, much quicker, not worrying about where hardware is coming from, if it's delayed somewhere, and especially now in these times where there are significant supply chain issues with hardware, it's just very hard to quantify how much improved the experience is overall by focusing on the cloud technologies.
Such a good point about the shortage issues these days on, hardware. I'm hearing this consistently. So that's a great call out. Bertrand, from your perspective, has it sped up your implementations as well?
Yes, clearly, we can see that nothing compared to on-premise or V5 SaaS installation. It's really faster. Configuration is now done in less than a day, where before it was 5 to 10 days. So clearly, that's nothing to compare.
And I would love for both of you to comment on the owner experience. Do you feel like that and if you have any anecdotes to share there, around what you've seen or heard from your owners in their experience of implementing Opera Cloud versus a premise property?
Yeah, I think from our side, the experience we have is twofold. We also had a lot of Opera hosted clients on the V5 product, and we still have our premise clients. Once for the premise clients, I know the biggest hurdle initially is access to that server on site. It's that perception we're talking about. It's related to data migration. It's related to the controls of things. That is hard for properties to relinquish that control. And we understand that. But with having to not worry about the security and management of the server sitting on property, with being able to use the tools that, especially with Opera Cloud, as we talked about earlier, OHIP, and the tools and the availability of the product itself, really the positive feedback is certainly there. We've heard anecdotally a few things. We have heard for existing V5 users, we've heard some folks tell us that while Opera Cloud is a very different user interface and looks completely different, a lot of the logic of Opera is there. And so while it's certainly a lot to transition and learn in the beginning, as they get more into the application and work with it, they start seeing some of the logic that's already built in as part of this platform that's been there for years. So that was nice to hear. It reinforces that while it is a very different application, there are things that resonate and allows them to work more effectively in the application. But definitely it's been overwhelmingly positive as far as the tools, the swiftness by which they were able to receive it, and generally the reporting and all of the pieces that are in this. It's been a very positive overall feedback experience.
All right. Bertrand, what about from your side? What are you hearing from your owners about their experience with Opera Cloud?
Well, same thing as Christine, and I think in Accor we were using a lot of V5 SaaS private environments, and we have convinced an owner to move from its own V5 SaaS environment to Opera Cloud, and it was something we were trying since 5 years. So showing him the benefits of Opera Cloud, of moving by waves, so meaning that in 2 weeks, all these properties will be live on Opera Cloud, was really helping us, and showing the cost difference between V5 SaaS implementation and Opera Cloud was really a key point for us, yes.
Very good. All right. So final question I have for you here is, what has been your biggest lesson learned since the implementation of Opera Cloud?
I would say for us, it's more of a lesson reinforced versus learned. And it's been in the power of this partnership. To transform how you deliver a technology solution to a large number of properties in a specific period of time, you have to be completely aligned as partners and be willing to share the feedback, the good and the bad, that will enable us to collectively continue to transform this process, and most importantly, the property and our guest experiences. We're fortunate to have an account team at Oracle, transparently, that recognizes this as an essential aspect of our continued long-term success. And that give and take is very important. We sit and collaborate via Zoom. We have regular phone calls and conversations. There's just a lot of engagement, and that's very important. As you're building these new processes and models to implement, you need that support. And so that's really been a very good and positive reinforced message throughout this process.
Well, I can certainly thank you for your support and collaboration, because you are absolutely right. If we do this together and we collaborate together, we can achieve anything. So thank you for that, Christine. Bertrand, what about from your perspective?
Well, I will join Christine on that. Get prepared, collaborate as one team, and anticipate as much as possible. Cloud is very different than on-prem system or even Opera V5 SaaS. You really need to understand the new architecture and how things are now working, as well as a lot of Oracle teams are now involved. So you really need to work end to end. Make sure you well prepared your rollout plan with the Oracle consulting team, not only with timing, but also with a clear checklist on what needs to be done. Do at least 2 or 3 pilots to validate your assumptions, because configuration and user management are clearly some part that you need to pay attention on. You can still discover things when doing your second pilot or third pilot, because one particular hotel is behaving differently than the 2 first. And last is also do not underestimate the impact on the change management. Even if the PMS is a PMS, there is certain area where Opera Cloud is not the same than Opera V5, which is sometimes very disturbing for users. So make sure you have tested each of your user stories and documented everything, so you can provide them with some user guide to help at the beginning.
All great advice, Bertrand. Thank you so much. Thank you, Christine and Bertrand, for being so open today, sharing your experiences and your best practices and your continued partnership as we work through deploying the rest of your estate.
Thank you.
Thank you.